So even though we have the new Halloween coming out that's going to ignore all of the films besides the first one, I've always had this issue with Halloween H2O that everybody else had, that it ignores 4, 5, and 6. And I really wanted to talk about and vent why, like, what I could do to incorporate H2O and Resurrection in, like, with 4, 5, and 6, like, have them all connect, even though they say that they're not connected. I feel like there's still a logical way to incorporate 4, 5, and 6 into those films. And it's always irked me that it's been ignored. And I feel like there's things that you can explain really easily that would make it connect. And it would have made it, to me, more, in H2O, more relatable if Laurie Strode had a daughter too that was killed and she's being overprotective of her son because her son could be next and she's already lost a daughter. That would have been way better. And I do really like H2O, even though it does have a lot of problems with it. But I feel like if she lived, or if she died in this canon and, like, Laurie knew about it, like, she would have, it makes more logical sense that she would have wanted to kill Michael more. And because she'd have another kid that, like her son John, that would be her only thing left, and she's like, she's not going to lose her other kid. So that would have been cool if they connected 4, 5, and 6. But anyways, starting with H2O, I'm going to talk more about H2O than Resurrection, because Resurrection, the only thing they say in that contradicts 4, 5, and 6 is that at the beginning, after he kills Laurie Strode, he says, like, or the clown guy who recites all the killers, like, names and information, he says, like, Michael Myers killed blah 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 this many people in 1978 and then in 1998. And then at the end of the movie, Busta Rhymes says, like, is this where he's been living for 20 years, under his house? Which is a really stupid thing, that he would be living in his house, underneath his house for 20 years. Fuck that movie. So it's more about H2O in terms of contradicting 4, 5, and 6 and how it could incorporate them. And the only thing in H2O that does contradict 4, 5, and 6, really, in a way, was a really cheap line where the two detectives come in after Marion Whittington now, instead of Marion Loomis. Not Marion Loomis, I forgot what her last name is in the original Halloween. Why am I blanking on it? I've always known it, but the Marion who dies in H2O, whenever the detectives come in, it has a really cheap line where they say, it could have been Michael Myers. His body was never recovered 20 years ago. And it makes more logical sense that if 4, 5, and 6 existed in this canon, it's like it could have literally made more logical sense than what you said there. So 20 years has passed since the original 2, and he's just been gone for 20 years. What's he been doing? Like, it makes more logical sense for 4, 5, and 6, where he has been on the rise. He has been actually racking up the bodies, like, literally, like, becoming this formidable force that, like, should make it even more scarier in H2O if, like, Laurie knew, like, if 4, 5, and 6 existed and he killed her daughter and he killed all these people in Haddonfield, it would have made it, like, more of an impression on Laurie, because in this one, it's like he killed in the first 2 movies and then that's it. But if he killed her daughter and killed all these other people in Haddonfield, it would have really made Laurie more, like, I would have liked to see that and see her have a bigger, more better written struggle, I'd say, because I think it's just interesting that she, like, seeing how this would play out in that way. But like I said, the only thing to do is contradict 4, 5, and 6 is they just say his body was never found after the hospital, or after the hospital exploded. Again, makes no logical sense without 4, 5, and 6. It makes more sense with 4, 5, and 6 existing, but that's the only thing that they do to where it disconnects it from 4, 5, and 6. Besides that, everything else makes sense. Like, you could literally, in my view, the way that I incorporate these 3 movies into H2O is that Laurie dies in a car wreck, but I feel like people say like, oh, she'd be a horrible person if she took one kid and left the other one for literally there to be killed by Michael Myers. But the thing I think about it is that maybe Laurie became, like, she died in this car wreck, and she had a divorce with whoever was Jamie and John's father, or if it was multiple fathers, but whoever the father was of Jamie, I feel like Laurie couldn't have taken both kids because there might have been a divorce dispute, and the guy who probably had Jamie didn't even think like, oh, it doesn't matter, like, this guy's not coming back, like, he's literally like dead, like, he's gone. Even though in 4 he's like in Ridgemont, but I feel like people would just assume he's dead, even Laurie, in that time frame after the first 2 movies. So I would think it would be like a divorce thing where like Laurie is going so crazy and so unhinged, living in fear of this guy coming back, that the husband just doesn't have any patience for it, and he divorces her and he takes one of the kids. So whenever Laurie dies, like, and maybe the husband dies of something else, like, that leaves Jamie on her own, taken to the Carruthers, and that would have been a cool incorporation. And so it would be that Laurie goes into hiding, feels extremely guilty about not being able to take her daughter, but her daughter is not, like, she's with another, like, with the husband, the divorced husband, so it's like she can't take this kid too. And I feel like it would make more sense, I guess, if it was 2 different fathers, because then the father with John, it's like maybe they could go off and divorce later, like Laurie and the John's father. So Jamie's father kept Jamie, and then he maybe died of something. And then John's father, the druggie addict that they implied in H2O, maybe just like Laurie and him divorced too, and like he's gone out of the picture too. So it's like you could knock out 2 birds with 1 stone with that. And the only other thing I think to really say like that contradicts it is that to be fair, H2O doesn't contradict it as much in terms of like Haddonfield, because you never see Haddonfield in H2O. You see Langdon, Illinois, where Marion lives now. And the way I implied that is that in Haddonfield all this shit happened. The cult happened. Michael came back 3 times after Laurie's initial like running away and moving to California. And I really think it would be interesting just to see that, and to see how Laurie she goes through all this shit, like 20 years of literally living in fear while her daughter is taken and like killed eventually by Michael Myers. And I think with the cult thing, it's actually a good cover-up, because maybe they could have said, if they really wanted to in H2O, they could have said that there was a copycat killer for 4, 5, and 6. But the copycat killer is actually Michael Myers. Like, it's actually him. He's just literally he's been active for 20 years. He hasn't been just hiding, as H2O implies. And by the end of Halloween 6, whenever Loomis gains the ability, the Thorn Curse, he dies a couple years later in Marion's like house. Like, he dies in her house from this curse. Like, he just withers away. And then I think that Wynn is blamed for the murders, because at the end of the producer's cut of 6, it's like he's wearing the mask that Michael swaps out with him, which swapping out masks makes sense in H2O and Resurrection. Even though I don't like Resurrection, that does make a kind of a sense too, like if that it would connect, that Michael would do that in 6 and then he would do that in H2O to Resurrection, like he would switch outfits with somebody. Like, that would be a cool connection. And I think if they incorporated the cult thing existing, like, Wynn could have been blamed for all the murders wearing the Michael outfit at the end of the movie, at the end of 6. So then Tommy, Kara, and Steven and Danny all like drive away, like they're gone for good. Like, there's nowhere in the world like they're hiding from Michael forever, like until they die. And Michael sets his sights on Laurie, realizing that she's still alive. So I think that would be a cool way to incorporate 4, 5, and 6 into the canon if they were smart about it. Because this, again, this was not one of those movies where they cared. H2O, even though there are things I love about H2O, like Jamie Lee Curtis's performance, and the ending, the last third act, is one of the best in any of the franchise. I think that it has so many issues because this company does not care. Just like with Halloween 6, they did not care. They sent that off to 14-year-old kids for these viewings before it was released. And the kids were like, oh, it sucked because it wasn't like a Friday the 13th movie. So it's like this company never, like the companies that are involved in this usually never care. Except I feel like the new one is trying to care more than the other sequels. Like this, the newest one coming out feels like it is a legit sequel in the way where it seems like they care. It seems like it's a movie made by fans for fans, and not just a studio that wants to make money, like a cash grab, which almost all these sequels are, even though there are a lot of them that I enjoy or dislike. So I really think that it's interesting how these studios always do this, especially with this franchise, especially with Halloween. It's just so funny that Dimension Films really did do that a lot with 6 and then H2O and then Resurrection. Like they really butchered those movies where they could have been way better, but they just didn't even, like, it's so stupid. It makes me so mad that they don't care. It's obviously a money thing. So I really do, like, even though, of course, 4, 5, and 6 don't exist, quote unquote, in H2O and Resurrection, I like the fact that I've always thought about that the first time since I've seen these movies. Like, it made me so mad that H2O ignored the last 3 movies before it. I'm like, that's just not fair. Like, all these people, whether you love or hate those movies, 4, 5, and 6, it took time and effort for people to make all those movies, like spend all that time, and then Steve Miner was too lazy to even watch the other damn movies. And then the commentary for H2O on the Scream Factory box set that I've got, he says, like, he never saw any of the Friday the 13th either after directed the second and the third one. It's like he doesn't care. And it just made me mad that, like, you don't care about the franchise. It's just like, again, a lot of these people just don't care about these type of films. They're trying to do it for money. Sometimes it starts off with good intentions, like H2O, it really did, but then with studio interference, with just Pete director not caring, it just really annoys me that it has gone that far. So like I said, I wish that 4, 5, and 6 were involved, but like they don't. Like it's annoying that they don't do that. They just didn't care. They really didn't. So basically, the end of this video, basically what I'm saying is that Laurie left without Jamie. Her divorced husband took Jamie. Michael was sent to Ridgemont after the second film. He was kind of in a hiding way because the cult was in charge of all the Ridgemont place. So like he was kind of hidden from society. And then by the end of 6, I feel like Wynn could have been accused of the murders for 4, 5, and 6 because Michael has not been heard of in real life, like, because the cult's been hiding him since the first 2 films. So that makes sense that he would have been gone. And then in H2O, they're like, they never found his body because maybe the cult took it away, even in Halloween 2. So that would have been a cool connection. So yeah, ranting on and on, but I really like these random, like, things like that bug me, and I really wanted to just vent and talk about it because I really am annoyed, again, still to this day, that H2O ignored 4, 5, and 6, but again, even with the new one that's ignoring every sequel, it's not as annoying. Like, funny enough, because it's not a couple of the movies, it's all of them. And it sounds so intriguing on what they're doing with the new movie, so I'm excited for the new one. But anyways, this is all I'm going to say for this video. Really do enjoy talking about little nitpicky things like that, but I thought it was just fun. So I'm glad you guys watched it if you did, so thank you for watching.